Hi, it's Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Coming to the blog post we want to share with you, of course, we review the latest in social media technology, and we're doing phone comparisons of these posts. You can find other comparisons on the ChrisVossShow.com and our YouTube channel. And what we are comparing here today is two AT&T phones. Thank you to AT&T for providing these phones for our service. We've got the Sony Xperia Ion, and we also have the Samsung Galaxy S3. And these are two new phones that have come out within a month of each other. One of the big main glaring differences of these phones is the Sony actually has a 12 megapixel camera, which is interesting. We'll talk about that here in a bit. So it definitely has a much higher pixel camera over the 8 megapixel camera that you can find with the Samsung. But we'll get into the details of that, which is phone we feel is better and all that good stuff. So let's take a look at both phones. We'll get into this here. Let's take a look at the Sony phone. Of course, we have a front-facing camera. Looks like we have a little bit of, I don't know if this is a speaker or sound button that's at the top here. We have a beautiful looking, very large, clear screen. We've got some of your normal buttons down here. Of course, these aren't really buttons, but they're sensors that respond to touch and all that good stuff. So you got search, backspace, home, and menu that can come up here. It's a great monolithic looking phone. That's why I really like it. I've been very impressed with the Sony product. Down the right side here we have a power button. We have a rocker button, volume rocker button. I really like this where it's a nice small button where it can't get in your way and you don't end up touching as much. There also is a camera button, so you've got easy access to push the camera button when you want to. What's really nice here too, that's kind of also a very unique feature of the Sony Xperia Ion, is you not only have a power plug that you can plug into to charge your device and all that good stuff, you also have HDMI out, if you can see that on the tag there, HDMI out. So if you have a micro HDMI cord, you can plug this in, you can literally work this off of your HDMI TV. And what's really cool is it works much like an Apple or iOS system works, where you can literally see the same menu that you would see on the Android. You literally see most of this stuff in a little bit of a reformatted menu on your HDTV, and it comes out really, really cool, and it's very impressive. I really like it. It's very nice to be able to play games and do everything on your HDMI TV. So for that reason, it really soars in that element of having that unique quality. Now, this is Sony's first 4G LTE phone, so it's kind of an important phone for them in gaining access to the market. Down on the bottom, we've got a small microphone, and then of course a pop-off port. We'll get into that and what it does and all that good stuff. On the back, we're looking at a little Xperia logo. We're looking at a flash. There's a speaker on the back, and there's also a camera lens on the back, and there's a pull-off top. We'll get into that in a second. Also, there is a microphone button, an earphone button at the very top in the middle there, and that's pretty much the roundabout of it. Let's take a look at the Samsung, and we'll take a look at the Samsung. With the Samsung, we've got a forward-looking camera, front-facing camera, if you will. We've got a speaker system across the top that talks to us when we're on calls. The one thing about their system is they have a light-up system that actually times out and goes to standby, this back button and the memory button, and then it has a hard press activation home button, which is kind of interesting. It's very thin when you compare the two. It's very close in comparison. I would say maybe the Galaxy feels thinner, or at least it feels a little bit lighter. The one thing about the Galaxy is I've been holding it like a Frisbee. I really like how easy it is to take and hold it. At the bottom, you have a charger plug-in. On the right-hand side, you've got a power button. On the left-hand side, you've got a rocker for volume up and down. On the top, you've got your earphone. You've got a microphone hole, it appears, and there's also a microphone hole at the bottom. Now, the one thing I've really enjoyed about the Samsung, and is that it's got a small. It basically, you can work all the rocker controls from the left hand, whereas the Samsung not so much. If you accidentally press the wrong button, you're going to activate the ringer volume. I haven't as much problem with that though, because it is a very small rocker button. So I actually do like the Sony setup also initially as well. Let's take a look at both these phones. Both these phones have SD card ability to go ahead and give you more memory. With the Sony, you have the ability to go up to a 64 gigabyte memory that you can take and plug in, slide in here on the side, and this is of course how you get access to your SIM card. You can see on the back here that we've got a speakerphone or a speaker that we might call this. We've got a camera, we've also got a flash, and that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and attach the back. Now, the one thing about the Sony Xperia Ion is it's got a pop-off top. Looks like we're getting some sound from somewhere. Let's see where that's at. Let's see if we can't fix whatever that is. So with the Sony Xperia Ion, in the top part here, you've got a place for your SIM card, and then you've also got a place for the micro SD card that you can put in here for more memory. So that makes it really nice to where you can expand the memory in both these phones and all that good stuff. I really do like the Sony phone because it gives you a it's really monolithic and it fits really well. You can see it's a little bit smaller than the Galaxy phone. Fits really well in the palm of your hand and feels very comfortable, easy to hold on to, and ergonomically correct. They're both great phones when it comes to holding it. The Samsung is just a little bit bigger. So it's up to you in that area there as to which one you want to say is better. Now, let's get into the specific details of the phones in and of themselves. What we're going to be looking at is one of the issues with the Sony is working off of software, which is going to be the Android Gingerbread software. Android Gingerbread 2.3. Now, it's got a planned upgrade to 4.0, which is the ice cream sandwich, which is on the Samsung. It has not come out yet. It's kind of surprising to me and surprising to a lot of people that Sony would put out this great phone with 12 megapixel camera, their first 4G LTE, and it's running off of Gingerbread. What's going on there? But it does seem very fast with Gingerbread, and I haven't had any complaints with it otherwise. But I do like the ice cream sandwich OS that you get with the new Androids that are coming out now, and of course you get with the Samsung Galaxy S3. So big difference there. I'm really interested, I gotta tell you, because I do love the Sony phone. I am really interested to see how this phone runs with the ice cream sandwich update that's planned for it. I just have to wait until it can finally get there. You can see it's quite a bit thicker in its build than the Sony. So let's get into this some more. We've got the Sony Xperia. Basically runs off an LED backlit LCD capacitive touchscreen. It's got 16 million colors, 720 by 1280 pixels, 4.55 inches, multi-touch up to 4 fingers, scratch-resistant glass, and it works off the Sony Mobile Bravia Engine Timescape UI. With the Samsung Galaxy S3, what we're looking at here is we're looking at Super AMOLED capacitive touchscreen, 60 million colors, 17 by 1280 pixels, and 4.8 inches. So in essence, you're looking at basically, let's see, which one is bigger when it comes to size? 4.5 inches compared to, looks like 4.8 inches. So the Galaxy is, of course, going to be the much bigger screen that you're going to take and have. I really do like both phones. I really got to tell you, I really feel comfortable with the Sony phone, and it's really hard for me to give that up, but really when it comes down to it, the OS system is the key, and who wants an antiquated OS system really when it takes and comes down to it. So let's talk about a few other things here so we can get a good idea of comparing apples to apples. On this, you're looking at memory. With memory, you can have up to 32 gigabytes on the Sony Xperia. You've got a 1 gigabyte RAM that's built into it. The awesome thing with the Sony Galaxy 3 is you can have up to 64 gigabytes of RAM with it. So much more you can put into the Galaxy over the Sony. So it's pretty awesome that way. It does have 1 gigabyte RAM, which makes it very, very, very fast. Let's take a look at a few other things. Now, where these two phones really separate is in the camera. With the camera, you've got a 12 megapixel with the Sony. It's 4,000 by 3,000 pixels. It's got autofocus. It rivals the iPhone camera like nothing I've ever seen, but it does pixelate much faster than iPhone pictures. So it's kind of interesting to me that an 8 megapixel camera on the iPhone won't pixelate faster than a 12 megapixel camera pictures that you take on the Sony. It really confuses me as to why that is. Obviously, the quality of the camera on the iPhone is better, but it is 12 megapixels, and I got to tell you, on the surface, when you look at most of the pictures with the Sony Xperia Ion, they do rival the iPhone like nothing else I've seen before. So there is that. With this camera, you're looking at, on the Samsung S3, you're looking at an 8 megapixel camera, 3264 by 2448 pixels, simultaneously HD video. It does have 1080p 30 frames per second video on it, and it also has a 1.9 megapixel 720 at 30 frames per second front facing camera. Conversely, you have on the Sony, you have a 1080p 30 frames per second continuous autofocus, which is really good on the video. You also have on the front part a 1.3 megapixel 720 at 30 frames per second. So a little bit less on the front facing camera with the AT&T, but of course you do get 12 megapixels on the back end. So that makes quite a bit of difference. And of course, once again, Android OS 2.3 over here, and they're planning on upgrading it. This one does have a dual core 1.5 gigahertz, and the Samsung is also operating off of 1.4 actually gigahertz core A9. And of course, you don't really seem to notice it. It moves very fast and quick, and when it does, the battery in the Samsung is a 2100 milliamp battery, and will give you up to, let's see, standby 790 hours. Talk time up to 11 hours 40 minutes. We find that these operate just like any of the Android phones. They're pretty much gone in a day, or if their heavy use is gone through most of the day. With the Sony phone, you're taking a look at a 1900 milliamp phone. Not much difference between the two, a couple hundred milliamps. And of course, that will make a difference in the quality of how you use it. Up to 350 hours at 3G. And up to 4 hours at 3G. You're going to burn much faster, of course, with the Sony. So let's take a look at a few other elements that are going to make a difference. The screens are, of course, beautiful. I actually have both these screens bulked out to where they are at the height of their brightness. And as you can see, the Galaxy phone is much more beautiful. Let's take a look at a few different things that we can test this up against. One of the things I like to do is I like to use the Facebook app, because the Facebook app is a really lame app. Let's see how fast both these take a load. We restarted both phones so that they can be up. The Samsung may have, or the Sony may have a lead in maybe a cache. I could be wrong. Looks like there's some struggle going on there. Let's take a look at this. We'll go to Flipboard. We'll try and load Flipboard and see the difference between the two and how they load. Okay, looks like they're pretty much loading about the same in how they want to take and do. Samsung, of course, is loading a little bit better. Let's take a look at how our pictures are going to come. We're not going to find much side-by-side comparison there. Let's go ahead and take a look at what else can we take a look at comparing the two of these with. Let's compare with one of the favorite programs that I have is called Pulse, which pulls in the data from news services. We'll go ahead and click on these about the same time. We'll see which ones loads faster. Of course, you can see I like the Samsung Galaxy screen much better, and the way it loads. Let's see, we're both on the home page. Let's go to page 2, because that's going to be a new load. You can see the Samsung Galaxy S3 is loading, of course, much faster on its data and information, and in pulling it, it's about the same. So Looks like we've got some better touch reaction with the Super AMOLED screen with the Samsung Galaxy S3. Now, picture-wise, let's talk about pictures because that's where these two really separate and they make a difference. And depending upon whether you like pictures or a camera is important to you in a phone, some people just really don't care. That makes a huge difference. One thing we are noticing with the Samsung Galaxy S3, and we're hoping this can be resolved by software, is that when you press to go to initially the portfolio of photos you have, you get kind of a black screen there for a while. If you notice, you don't really get that with the other Android phones. And in so doing, we're kind of concerned about that. Also, when you play video, it tends to show the video in a state where it's about to go to standby. We're not sure why it does that, and then once it comes out, it's a much better picture when it's not playing the video. We're hoping that gets resolved. Now, the one thing with Sony is we do like their video and we do like the phones and how they come across, but unfortunately, as you can see here, the quality of the video looks much better with the Samsung 3G, and it looks much more real, much more natural, and all that good stuff. Let's take a look at something else. We want to take a look at the pictures that we took with the Samsung. So we'll go ahead and blow that up, and let's see if we can't get to that as well. You can see here the Samsung takes really good pictures. It's kind of interesting to us how that turns out that way. We don't really know why. There's a difference in the picture, but it's definitely interesting in how it's set up. You can adjust both cameras, of course, which is really nice. You notice the color differences that we're seeing here. You can actually see better clarity and everything with the Sony and better colorization, but I gotta tell you, the Samsung Galaxy is much closer to the original color, so that's interesting of itself. It's really a toss-up between video and everything else with the two cameras. I'm really interested to see what software updates will come with the ice cream sandwich on the AT&T Sony phone, and if they're going to update any sort of stuff on the Samsung. So overall, I mean, technically you're supposed to be getting a 12 megapixel camera with the Sony. It's kind of questionable as to the quality there between the two and what your specific eye likes. Of course, you can get some really great, beautiful shots with the Sony, and I got to tell you, we put the Sony up against the iPhone, and we're very impressed with how the Sony takes pictures versus the iPhone, and all that good stuff. So much less quality that we found with the Samsung S3. Overall, we like both phones, but I do love the thinness of the Samsung S3 over the Sony. I do like the Sony. I'm really interested to see how this phone plays out. Speed-wise, it has a very comfortable feel. They both have very good comfortable feels speed-wise, but I do like the bigger screen, of course, with the Samsung S3, and I do like the faster response time and all that good stuff. So for my money, I would probably take the Samsung S3 over the Sony. Now, the Sony isn't expensive, and I think it's probably half the price of the Galaxy S3 right now. So that can be a factor in the quality of what you decide to do with your purchasing dollar. The great thing about both these phones is you can get them from AT&T. You can get them on the 4G LTE network, which we've tested a lot. We've got a lot of different phones from AT&T, and we're very impressed with the quality of the service that we get from the 4G LTE network. So thank you to AT&T for providing these phones with us first today to compare the two. I would, of course, go and spend the extra couple $100 to get a Samsung S3. If you don't have it, get the Sony. The Sony's a great price. I believe it starts out at $200 or $100 if you want to take and sign up for the 2-year thing. I believe you can get the Samsung right now for $200. Pick the phone that's going to work well for you. I mean, if you can only afford the more inexpensive phone, the AT&T Sony, you know what? It's an awesome phone. I really like it. I'm excited to see what's going to happen once they upgrade it to ice cream sandwich. So be sure to check out both phones. Go to your local AT&T store or look up at AT&T.com. Check out their website and decide which phone's best for you. For my money, though, for the quality of screen, size of screen, watching videos, doing games, you can see here the screen's a little bit larger with the Galaxy. I'm going to go with the Galaxy S3 as the winner between these two.